I recently bought someone's old computer from eBay for only $285. Now to give you a quick overview, it's a bit scuffed, one of the case feet are missing, so there's that. It was also pretty dusty, just about every part of this computer was covered in dust, and it's safe to say the CPU cooler has seen better days. Since buying the PC, I've dusted it out, upgraded the CPU cooler because it wasn't exactly doing a good job of cooling the CPU, and I also tested a few games on it. In AAA titles like Cyberpunk, it averages above 60 FPS, and in esports games like Fortnite, it averages above 144. The performance really isn't bad when you consider the price I paid for the whole computer, and the specs are decent enough. I'll go over those in just a minute. But I know it can be a lot better with just a few upgrades, so that's the goal. But I also want to keep it budget friendly because it's easy to throw money at something and make it better, but we want to be a little more intentional with the money that we spend on it. Let's start by taking it apart. One of the obvious upgrades is going to be a new case, and I have two more upgrades that actually matter and will give us at least a 10% boost in performance across all the games that I tested. I'll also be comparing the FPS numbers from before and after the upgrades. That way we can see if doing all of this was actually worth it. Now let's rebuild it, and I'll be going over all the parts as I go along. For the CPU, it's an Intel i7-10700F, nice little 8-core processor, and this is by far the best part out of the whole PC. And the awesome part, I wasn't even supposed to get this. The person on eBay who was selling the computer, they stated it had an i5 10th gen CPU, but man, I guess I got lucky. I don't know what happened, but I'll take the free upgrade. The CPU is paired with this Gigabyte B460. It's a decent micro ATX motherboard with onboard Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. When I first bought the PC, it had Windows 10 installed, but since then I fully updated the BIOS and installed Windows 11, so this thing is fully ready to go. For the RAM, the build head came with 16 gigabytes of DDR4. This 2x8 gigabyte kit clocked at 3000 megahertz. For another one of the upgrades, I'm adding 2 more sticks so we can have a total of 32 gigabytes. Now they are mixed matched kits, but the frequency is the same, so it should run with no issues. If you have an old computer, then adding more RAM is so simple and can be a really beneficial upgrade. This only cost me an extra $15.87 because the kit I added was bought used on eBay. For the storage, the original computer came with a 512 gigabyte M.2 SSD, and I'm keeping it the same. No changes here, and again, this can be an easy but really beneficial upgrade, especially if your computer is running the operating system off of a hard drive. Luckily, we have the M.2 SSD, although a bigger capacity would have been nice to have. It's not a deal breaker, as it can be added down the line. Now, as I said, I already upgraded the CPU cooler from the crappy Thermaltake one that came with the PC, and I installed this Cooler Master Hyper 212. It's nothing fancy, just your standard tower cooler, but at least it will work. To hold all the components, I bought a brand new case off of Amazon during the Prime Day deals for $51.67. It's a Dark Flash C275P. It has the classic copy and paste design from the popular glass boxes you see everywhere. This one is pretty tiny, but it comes pre-installed with 3 ARGB fans, so can't complain too much. I'm just happy it will be able to sit on the desk and not be slanted. After seeing the cheap CPU cooler, I was expecting a cheap power supply, but I was actually surprised because it's a decent 600 watt 80 plus gold unit from EVGA. I'm assuming this is a pre-built PC, so this is nice to see. The last part of the build, it came with an RTX 2060, and for the price of the computer, getting these specs was pretty awesome, but the GPU only has 6 gigs of VRAM, which isn't ideal. I settled on upgrading to the next generation. Sticking with Nvidia, I bought this RTX 3070 from eBay for right around $200. This card performs pretty closely to the RTX 5060, but it can be found for $200 pretty frequently on the used market. And if you want to get this GPU, then I recommend trying to find a deal close to you on sites like Facebook Marketplace. If you shop local, then you should be able to get a deal for close to $200 or even cheaper. The main difference between this card and the RTX 2060 is the extra VRAM from 6 to 8, but there are other differences to note, like the power draw is higher on the 3070, but with the power supply, we will have no problems. Here's a look at the new PC. It looks better than before. Now you can argue and say that I wasted money on a new case since it won't actually improve the performance, and I'll say you're right. But after the 3 upgrades, I only spent $263.29. As long as we get better performance, then I'll be happy with wasting some money on the case. But now, let's see how much of a difference these upgrades make. I'm retesting Fortnite to compare the FPS numbers from before, and this is at 1080p performance mode with all the settings on low. Before the upgrades, our average FPS was 165 with a 1% low of 44. Now that made the dips kinda bad since it was under 60 FPS, but now after the upgrades, we averaged 209 FPS with a 1% low of 77. We saw about a 23% boost in performance, which isn't bad for this game. Now I've noticed with Fortnite and budget PCs, the performance can change a lot just based on game updates, and one thing that usually suffers is the 1% lows, but it's not to say it's unplayable, just something to note. In Cyberpunk, it was at 1080p with the high settings preset, and before the upgrades, the game was playable, though sometimes the average FPS would dip below 60, but after the upgrades, the gameplay was a lot smoother. The FPS dips weren't as noticeable, and our average FPS jumped from 64 to 93, and that's about a 36% boost in performance for this game. For another AAA title, I tested Red Dead Redemption 2, and with the old RTX 2060, and the limited VRAM, it was really hurting the performance. This is the only game where the average FPS was below 60, but it was still very playable and looked good with all high or ultra settings, and DLSS was set to balanced. Now after the upgrades, we saw the biggest boost so far, about a 55% difference, with a new average FPS of 99. In Marvel Rivals, I tested this game at 1080p with the high settings preset, and I had DLSS set to balanced. Before, our average FPS was 72, but after upgrading the RAM and GPU, we averaged 107 FPS. In Call of Duty Black Ops 6, I ran this game with a mix of high and low settings with DLSS set to balance, and I made sure to keep the settings the exact same. Before, we were struggling to get above 100 FPS, and now the average is 141. For a shooter game, it's always best to get more FPS for that slight advantage. In this game, we saw about a 41% boost in performance. I would say the best upgrade was definitely the GPU. So, do you think these upgrades were worth the extra cost, and was it money well spent? Out of the 3 upgrades, only 2 went towards getting better performance. The case upgrade was simply for better aesthetics, but this just goes to show you don't need to get a whole new PC or spend a ton of money to upgrade your current PC if you're just looking to get a little extra life out of it. The awesome thing about computers is they can actually be upgraded over time to suit your needs, and with your old parts, you can hold on to them for backups, sell them for extra cash, or build another PC and sell that one, which is what I would do. But that's it for me. Smash the like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.